Hey everyone, Darius from Self-Archeology here. In this video, I want to talk about a very important topic, which is why is it important to talk about childhood trauma? Why do I personally talk about childhood trauma so much? Why do I concentrate in my work on childhood trauma? Why did I dedicate my life to talking about childhood trauma and helping other people overcome their childhood trauma? So why childhood trauma? In my personal and professional experience, I have come to a conclusion that most important, most significant problems that we face as adults on a personal level and on a societal level is because of childhood trauma. So it would make sense to try to solve the core problem. Now, why do I think that most our problems come from childhood trauma? And this is what I will talk about in this video in greater detail. A lot of people, when they look around, they see others, and they look even in the mirror and see themselves. They don't think about how did this person come to this state of their life. They kind of see other adults as adults in that moment. They don't think very much about how did this person come to be who they are today. And I think that's a very important thing to consider, that at some point in our lives, all of us were children, babies, infants. And a lot of stuff happened to us. And because of that stuff happening to us, we developed certain traits. This is very important, because a lot of people don't really know why they themselves are as they are and why other people are as they are. But if you understand this, if you understand psychology and early childhood development and human development in general, you know that whatever happens to us in our past influences our future. So even whatever happens to you today will have an impact on how you act, how you feel, how you think tomorrow and all the days after. So when we are small, our psyche is developing, and all the inputs that we get from our environment influences how our psyche develops. Those inputs can be intellectual, so some thoughts, some messages that we get from people around us, from our primary caregivers, mainly our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our teachers, other authority figures. It could be physical messages if somebody beats us, if somebody rapes us, if somebody suits us, if somebody hugs us, if somebody kisses us. All of that has different impacts on our development, on our physical development, on our mental development. Everything that happens to us and around us when we are developing has an influence on our development. That's how we form as human beings. So that's personal, that's our personal development, our personal level that we can understand childhood trauma on. So we as human beings, as I, as our egos, as our self, that's how we come about. Now, what about the social aspect? Because it doesn't end with us. Because if that were the case, then it would be less significant to talk about childhood trauma. It would be still very important, but not as significant. So on a societal level, on a social level. People like me, like you, they grow up, they become adults, they interact with other people. Those interactions create other experiences for both me as an actor in that interaction and the other person. And throughout our days, we interact with so many people. And most people haven't worked on their childhood traumas very much. So they grow up with all this unresolved pain and unresolved trauma, and then they interact with the world. So you on a personal level interact with the world and it has an effect on you, but then other people also interact with the world, with other people. And those interactions are very complex because you affect other people and other people affect you. And some people have more power, other people have less power. Some people's actions have more influence, other people's actions have less influence. So it's very complicated, but those tiny babies, those tiny infants, those teenagers, they grow up and they become those adults that most people don't see as ever being children. They just see them as adults, but it's the same children. Just grown-ups now with all the unresolved stuff that they act out, that you act out. All those unresolved needs that they try to meet, that you try to meet, all of that interacts with each other, and we have the world that we have. So our world, our society, is children who are grown-ups who haven't resolved their core primary childhood issues. And some people do work on those issues and do resolve them to a certain degree, but a lot of people don't. And if you understand that, you understand why there's so much injustice and cruelty and war and other horrible stuff, why people can't think rationally, why people hurt others, why people are cruel to others, why people don't care about anything pretty much except for themselves. These societal issues have reasons. They don't just come about. They are created by human beings, by people. And why do people create those problems? Because they themselves have problems, and childhood trauma and inner pain spreads in society, and it spreads intergenerationally. So those people who have traumas grow up, become adults, have children. Those children grow up with trauma that their parents acted out in their environment, and they grow up, have their own children, and so on, and so on, and so on. And that's how we have years and decades and centuries of unresolved trauma. So that's why I try to concentrate on childhood trauma. And I've at least had many people come to me, clients and not clients, and friends and acquaintances, and I myself noticed that too. For example, a person grows up and they remember how they had to go to school, for example, or to church, and how horrible it was there, how people were mean to them, how they were bullied and abused in many ways. And now as an adult, they go to work and they say, what the hell? It's the same thing, the same bullying, the same abuse. What is going on? It's the same thing. Those children grow up, become adults, find a job, create a work environment. If these people are unhealthy, then they create an unhealthy environment. You come into that environment with your own unresolved stuff, you interact with those people, and a lot of problems come up. But fundamentally, that's why we have bad work environments. That's why we have bad adult relationships. One of the most common issues in society is adult relationships. Why do people have problems as adults in their relationships? Why they have trust issues? Why they have boundary violation issues? Why they have codependency and narcissism? Why they have psychopathy? Why do people manipulate each other? All of that comes from unresolved childhood pain that they, as adults, act out, and that influences our society. And that's why I created my website years ago, almost 10 years ago. And that's why I wanted to concentrate on these issues. When I created it, first it was in Lithuanian, of all languages, because I'm Lithuanian. There were no resources. There were a few resources, but fundamentally, when I started to work on my issues and when I started to read more on these issues, I wanted to share this with the world and to help other people. And I wanted to create my website and to talk about it in great detail. And I've been doing this for almost a decade now. And I wrote a book on childhood trauma and human development where I talk about all these issues. And there have been a few people, as always, who misunderstood certain things in my book or lacked reading comprehension to correctly read what is said, but for the most part, the feedback was very positive. The feedback that I get for having my website, for helping my clients, all of that, for the most part, was very positive. And that's what motivates me to work on my website, on my Facebook page, on whatever social media I participate in my personal life to help people. I don't talk much about how I help people in my personal life because it's not about me bragging how I help people, but I've helped a lot of people in my personal life that I don't even share those stories. I want to help resolve childhood trauma because this is the most important issue. And if you can also spread the word about how important it is to understand these things. If you're one of those people who message me and tell me how pretty much my website saved their life or it significantly increased their happiness or it helped them understand something very profound, or they found an ally in me, in my work, share it with others. Help other people. This is important. So I think I'll end it here. I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, if you want to contribute to my work, you can join me on Patreon and subscribe for a monthly donation. If you don't have money or if you don't want to, that's fine. Just share my work, share other people's work, contribute to society as much as you can. Try to help us build a happier, a trauma-free future. So thank you so much and see you in the future. Bye.